And Naomi Wolf returns today to bring us up to date on some new data. Fauci Aide subpoenaed for 2020 EcoHealth emails on origins of COVID-19, allegedly to hide what was going on there. We will get into that. This was a advisor to Fauci who violated federal laws by moving communications with EcoHealth Alliance and the NIH director, Francis Collins, to a private Gmail to evade government record keeping. We will get into that. Her latest book is Facing the Beast, Courage, Faith, and Resistance in a New Dark Age, which who knew? You can follow her on X at Naomi Wolf, Naomi R. Wolf, I beg your pardon. dailyclout.io, I believe, is the website. Also on X, Daily Clout. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more with her right after this. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. Well, Mother's Day is upon us, and Genucel's Mother's Day sale has arrived as well. Perfect timing because Susan and I have upgraded our bundles with even more of our favorite skincare products now for over 50% off. We've been working with Genucel for almost 2 years, and because Genucel makes really the best skincare products in the world, you'll see. In fact, you can see how my skin corrected and repaired in this moment from the show live on our stream. And we know it's important to you. Genucel products use naturally effective proprietary ingredients that are non-GMO, plant-based formulas made in the USA. Just some of the reasons Genucel has 400% the customer loyalty of other skincare brands.
I know I'm a snob about the products I use on my face. Everybody knows it. Every time I go to the dermatologist's office, they're just rows and rows of different creams. And then when I get to the counter, they're overpriced. All kinds of products that you can all find at Genucel.com.
For now until Mother's Day, order Susan's Essentials package to get her favorite Ultra Retinol and Vitamin C serum, as well as other skincare must-haves. Order right now at Genucel.com/Drew and get a free luxury spa box that includes their incredible neck treatment, a free gift, plus free shipping. That is Genucel.com/Drew, GENUCEL.com/DREW. All right, as I said, you can follow Naomi on X at Naomi R. Wolf. Daily Clout also on X, and I believe the website is dailyclout.io. Also Substack, Naomi Wolf, Substack.com. Facing the Beast, Courage, Faith, and Resistance in a New Dark Age. And we have new information on Dr. Fauci's behavior, at least his assistant's behavior. Welcome, please, Naomi Wolf. Naomi, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you both again.
So I'm always curious on what's on your mind and what you're thinking about, what you've uncovered as you've fished around, and your husband has provided more information to us as well along the way here. But this one is it's surprising, but not unexpected, I guess I would say. What did you find?
Well, by this one, do you mean our latest revelation that I just brought out today to the world, which kind of confirms a warning signal that I've been trying to alert the world about since June of 2021 related to reproductive harms? Or is there another story that you had in mind?
Well, I was thinking about the Fauci Aide and the EcoHealth emails, but let's go right into the reproductive health issue because I know you've been right on top of that. So let's do it.
I'd love to share about that, and certainly I'll jump in about Dr. Fauci's Aide's emails after I get a chance to do this. But this is so important. Those of you who follow my work know that in June of 2021, I was deplatformed for warning about women reporting menstrual harms upon receiving the mRNA injections. And you, Dr. Drew, did a very noble and gentlemanly thing, initially not being that impressed with women's descriptions of these problems, and then wonderfully stepping up and apologizing to me, which wasn't even the most important thing. I didn't need the apology, but you were one of the very few men, certainly one of the very few male or female doctors to take this symptom as seriously as it needed to be taken. So now, unfortunately, we have the massive confirmation from a gigantic database that these injections are causing reproductive damage. Amy Kelly, our COO at Daily Clout and the director of the War Room Daily Clout Pfizer Documents research team, the 3,250 doctors and scientists who have been going through the Pfizer documents and releasing 100 reports, she summarized the work of the Canadian group called Canadian COVID Care Alliance. And what they have found is that they looked at January 2015 to December 2022, so longitudinal Ontario Health Insurance Plan billing code data via 2 Freedom of Information Act requests. And the reason that's important, I know you know, but maybe not all your audience does, is that when it's medical insurance billing data, it's comprehensive, it's detailed, it's primary source, it's government data, and obviously privacy is protected, but it lets you drill down into what exactly were people going to their doctors complaining of. So this is huge. So there were millions of data points. And what this group found is that there was a particular focus on female reproductive health and cancer billing codes in the medical system, and that it varied by time. And that post 2021, you saw this massive increase in billing codes related to women's reproductive harms and men's reproductive harms. So they found that menstrual disorders, and the code was 626, initially trended down from 2015 to 2019. But in 2021, which is when the vaccines were rolled out, that changed. And there was a huge bump upwards for that code. Menopausal and postmenopausal bleeding is another code, 627, and it increased in 2021 and 2022 dramatically. Menstrual disorders coding increased in 2021 and 2022. So did female infertility. This is a little maybe TMI, but there's a code 629, which is other disorders of female genital organs. And that also revealed a marked increase in diagnoses in 2021 and 2022. And this is so sad. The codes 632 and 634 are for missed, incomplete, or complete abortion, meaning miscarriages or spontaneous abortions, notably escalated after the uptake of the COVID vaccines in Ontario's population. Live births in 2021 through 2022 remain lower than in previous years. And lastly, the code 606, which is for male infertility, oligospermia, which is low sperm count, and azoospermia, absence of sperm in the semen, which is literally something I've never even heard of, shows a notable increase in both 2021 and 2022 over previous years. So in sum, both male reproductive functionality, female reproductive functionality, female reproductive health of all ages, and babies being able to, live till they're delivered are all dramatically negatively impaired according to billing codes in the Ontario medical system. Massive data set after 2021.
So I've got a few questions. So these code numbers you report, they don't sound familiar to me from the codes I use. Usually our codes start with a letter. Are these Canadian codes? Is that what that is?
Yeah, Canadian.
Okay.
It's a Canadian.
Okay. All right. And have you attempted to publish any of this data other than on your site, or is that something you think you could do to sort of at least as a letter or something to report this?
So important. So the Canadian COVID Care Alliance has presented it in a presentation with slides. And then Amy Kelly wrote this summary, which we published today on Daily Clout, presenting the findings in the slides. But we'd love to publish it, obviously, in a peer-reviewed journal. And our team did publish one of their reports, actually a report showing that Pfizer had hid 8 deaths of vaccinated people. They did publish that in a peer-reviewed journal, and that was very impactful. I mean, I'd love to. I just literally don't, we face so much censorship and opposition that I don't know what peer-reviewed journal will be willing to publish this group's findings.
Yeah.
But
that's what I actually think that'd be interesting, right? If you would know, you would find out what you're up against if you wrote it as a letter to several of the majors and see who took it,
right.
Because that would be very, very interesting by itself. Even not a major, send it. I'll tell you what, Annals of Internal Medicine has been very good about. They got on the controversies early and often, so you might think about them. Even they waxed and waned though a little bit, but this is all alarming, interesting. How is this missed? I'm wondering why, in other places, is there something about the way you collected data or the way that other people are collecting data? Maybe I'll frame it this way. What are the criticisms of this study?
Well, we've brought these findings to a public audience. I mean, COVID Care Alliance of Canada asked to partner with Amy Kelly because they wanted exposure of their findings. So they really haven't by themselves been able to kind of break through and bring this to a national or a global audience, understandably, because there's so much censorship. There hasn't been criticism. I mean, as with all of these reports, the primary sourcing is right there. Why did this not get found earlier? That's kind of easy from what I understand. No one asked the questions. I mean, basically this group, this group of really volunteers, just like our group is a group of volunteers, they submitted FOIA requests. They asked to see the data.
Yeah.
The, Toronto Star and the, Vancouver Sun and the all the people who are supposed to be informing Canadians if there's a major public health problem didn't submit FOIAs. They didn't ask to see the data. They didn't ask the questions. And so I think you really have to credit this group for having FOIA'd the material. And it also is incredibly laborious to go through millions of records and filter out code by code and see what happened and present it. So as you and I both know, journalists no longer do journalism, let alone, deep investigative database reporting that would have been required to break down these data sets into a story. But, let me toss it back out into the world. I mean, you reach millions of people. Hello, New York Times. Hello, Washington Post. Hello, what the Lancet and British Medical Journal.
Yeah,
this appears to be an incredibly important story with a massive longitudinal and also deep data set of a whole population. Dig right in.
Let's do it. Exactly. Your micro is right. Exactly. That's why I asked about the criticism. That's how that's how you chew through these things. And I know John Campbell in Great Britain has been sort of exploring these sort of stunning but outlying observations. You might try to get over to him. Have you ever been interviewed by him before?
No, but that's a great recommendation. That's a great suggestion.
That would be good. He go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not a medical doctor, as I always note, but to me, as a reporter, one thing that has a lot of verisimilitude is 2 of these conditions I'd never heard of before. We knew that postmenopausal women were bleeding. We knew that, childbearing age women were bleeding in weird ways. We broke the story about spontaneous abortions in the Pfizer documents, but no sperm at all in the semen. Like how common is that, Dr. Drew? I've literally never heard of that as a condition.
No, it happens.
And then,
it happens.
Sorry. Really,
it
that's
happens,
so sad.
but it is, it's obviously less than deficient sperm or sperm that's not functioning properly, that sort of thing. But azoospermia, I'd like to know more about those cases. Like it'd be I don't know. It'd be very interesting if that's actually caused by the vaccine. If somebody's reporting it as a vaccine thing, that would be amazing. But by the way, I have grave concerns about the reporting systems. I always did, because they looked like there was all these things coming in, and the way they decided if they were a vaccine reaction is they sent a guy out to decide, just a guy. Guy makes the decision. And I had a patient about a month ago, a 99-year-old, nearly 100-year-old, have a severe cardiac event within hours of the vaccine. I made the full report, no feedback from VAERS, none, no follow-up, no nothing. And I thought, oh, well, here we go. This is it. I've seen the case. It was a vaccine reaction. I managed it. It was not it. And the only reason it didn't require a hospitalization, I actually recommended that she go to the hospital. But if you've taken care of 90-plus-year-olds, they will tell you no. They'll, I'd rather come what may. Manage me as you will as an outpatient. And she was one of those people that said, I do not want to go to the hospital. And I had to kind of do my thing, and I was able to do it. And I was able to successfully, I don't want to say resuscitate, but deal with her arrhythmias that she was having. And it was not good. It was not a good situation. It could have been a catastrophe. And a category. Now, mind you, I've never seen that particular reaction, cardiac reaction, that one in elderly patients. I have seen it many times in young males. Exact same thing, precisely the same thing. Usually weeks later in the males. This one was hours later. Interesting. The other thing was I going to say about these strange reactions that people are getting and then not being reported. Aging brain, lost it. But I think the VAERS reporting. Go ahead. Yeah, the VAERS system is just gravely concerning to me. That it's not being properly followed up, and those that are followed up by somebody who just, I don't know what criteria they're using to decide that things. Obviously, the one I reported, they've decided is not only not a vaccine reaction, but not even worth their attention. Mind you,
so that was my
go ahead.
Sorry, that was my question. Did your case end up in VAERS? Like, could you identify it in the database?
I mean, I got a confirmation that I successfully submitted the report. I can tell you that. I mean, I took pictures of it, and I've got it, I left my email and my contact information. It was a physician report with detail, and they said, we'll get back to you, and then they did not. I do also want to revisit my apology really quick, because I think it's so important. It's not just because it shined a light on something that I want to just always bring up, which is we as males, particularly male caretakers and physicians, have a tendency to go, oh, women and their menses, whatever, come on up, relax. And because everything changes to menses, come on. And that was so inappropriate of me. It's comical, but it's also reprehensible. And so that was where my apology was coming from. Wait, can't hear you, Susan. What's that? Whoop, still can't hear you. I don't know. No, we do have a tape of it. We have a tape of the...
I wish we had a tape of it. I think it was on Dose of Dr. Drew, wasn't it?
No. It was on this show,
and both Naomi and I were like pulling our hair out and screaming.
Well, I was like, I wanted to fall on my sword completely, because it was not just that issue, but that issue itself is at the core here. That should carry on into the future, long after COVID, which is, hey, men, there's a lot in that packed in there that you are not thinking about, and you, as someone who's been very worried about women's health and women's freedoms for your whole career, you kindly brought it back to me, and I started thinking about it, and that's not okay. So anyway, I just want to revisit it for anybody that happens to be listening that is a man, that there's many, many, many implications of menstrual irregularities that can impact many aspects of a woman's life.
Well, thank you. And as I said, with the first time you apologized, you are forgiven. I would much rather have male physicians and caretakers.
It's okay. Not even that's not what I'm looking for. I just want to keep. I think it's worthy of bringing it up, because I guess maybe I'm giving myself too much credit. I consider myself sort of empathic, and the fact that I was doing that was like alarming to me.
Wait, did you just hear what she said?
What?
I'd rather have male caretakers.
No, I didn't let her finish her thought. I didn't let her finish the thought. Go ahead.
I did not finish.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead. Finish your thought.
I would rather have anyone, let's put it this way, we're all on a gigantic steep learning curve, and something completely unprecedented has happened to humanity. So I think all of us are kind of facing ourselves in a mirror all the time. And I'd rather be on this journey with people who are willing to kind of go, oh, hey, that was hasty, or maybe I didn't think that through, which I literally do 5 times a week, than people who are not examining themselves. So I think it's all good. But what I do want to say about the overall picture is that this set of codes, right, which includes a whole range of disabilities and problems and impairments, to me, and again, this is partly because I wrote a book called Vagina. And so I learned in very granular detail how much has to go right just to have a normal menstrual cycle. Let alone how much has to go right to have a conception, how much has to go right to have a fetus grow to term and be successfully delivered, how much has to go right, for lactation, for the baby to latch on, and so on, right? So to me, having gone through that, research process, knowing that women were having menstrual symptoms in 2021, made it obvious to me that there was something dramatically wrong that was going to impair fertility. And this is what we're seeing, sadly, in Canada now, that it's not just female fertility that's impaired, but male fertility. And it does confirm, like as a journalist, when you have confirmation from multiple independent sources, that quickly becomes a set of facts. And so in the Pfizer documents, which is the data set that, as you all know, my team and I have been familiar with, there's a section that warns men to use vaccinated men, to use 2 reliable forms of contraception if they're going to have intercourse with childbearing age women, and actually asks them not to do so. So Pfizer knew there was something affecting the semen of vaccinated men. And I've had so many frantic emails from childbearing age women saying, what is it going to do to me? And should I stop dating this guy? And it's heartbreaking emails. And I certainly can't advise, except just to say there's this evidence in this data set, but now a whole different data set is confirming that there's some impairment to male sperm in multiple ways. And this, by the way, confirms something that the journal Andrology found, an Israeli study about 2 years ago, that there was a drop in sperm count. So, and then you've got the infertility and the abortions and the spontaneous abortions, the miscarriages. So it's a very
that to me is the most dramatic. That's the most dramatic piece of data you presented, in my opinion, because it's a very specific endpoint that can't be denied. You're either having more or you are not having more, what are called INCABs, incomplete abortions. And the fact that those are up, it's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking about, Caleb, you're gonna have to help me. The woman I spoke to that was so gung-ho on vaccinating pregnant women from Great Britain. Vicky Mail. Vicky Mail was talking about. No, I know, but she was not talking about theoretically this might be people who were not vaccinated during pregnancy. It might have been prior to their pregnancy they got vaccinated, and that's what,
like a week before or something.
Who knows? We just don't know because no one's looking into this.
The only thing that bothered me about her, I know she really believed in her cause and we wanted to have her on, was that I mentioned that I had been blessed with triplets, and it was so hard to get pregnant, and then I had triplets. And I couldn't imagine putting anything in my body, even a Tylenol, during the pregnancy. And she said, oh, but that's okay for you because you're high risk. And I was like, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be like that for everybody. And
she did say that.
When I go to the obstetrician's office for my pellets, during the pandemic, I saw signs up everywhere saying that vaccines were safe for pregnant women everywhere.
Well,
I asked my doctor, I go, are you seeing any problems from this? She goes, I don't work in obstetrics anymore.
Yeah.
She just obfuscated the subject and moved on. And I said, fine, but it just kind of gave me a chill.
Well, but to be fair, this is where as this stuff is starting to roll out, what's happening to me is I'm starting to see overlap between COVID and vaccine. And they're in this mindset that COVID is what's dangerous to a pregnancy and vaccine has zero risk to the pregnancy. And if you really believe that, you're going to recommend vaccine, right? But it's so much more complicated as I'm looking at the data rolling out. And that's like right now, Naomi, as I talk to you, I when I had bad COVID, was aware it was affecting my heart. And I just had a heart flow study, a coronary CT angiogram, where we found, lo and behold, I've got calcium in my heart in a certain spot that I never had before, and some restriction. And and I asked the cardiologist, I go, is there any chance for the vaccine? I had the Johnson & Johnson. He's like, no, we're seeing this from COVID. And I thought, all right, well, I don't know. Plus, we're seeing more stuff after the boosters, and no one's teasing that out relative to COVID. There's so many questions to be answered, and none of the work being done except someone like you, who's trying to open these things up and just show what you find and ask the questions. And my what's disturbing to me is, and then you get condemned for that, you get criticized for that. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm sorry that you're having that situation. I just want to note that doctors who do give informed consent, or who are honest about the side effects, if they're aware of them, to patients get delicensed. So I would definitely get a second opinion from a dissident doctor, and we've got wonderful dissident doctors in our network. Now, going back to your point about if you really believe that COVID is more dangerous than the shots, and the shots are safe and effective, it's reasonable calculus. I guess I just kind of throw my hands up when I hear that, not at you personally, but just generally, that's soundbite in the world, because in November of 2020, Pfizer knew, per their documents, that the vaccines did not work to stop COVID.
Right.
They didn't work to stop transmission. They didn't stop COVID. They were not effective. Pfizer's conclusion was
and so that is one of the main, that's why this story is starting to unfold, right? Because people can't deny that any longer. Now you've noticed what the defense becomes: preventing hospitalizations, preventing the ICU, preventing death, preventing severe illness. That's becoming the chant that's replacing, if the illness stops with you if you take the vaccine. So we'll see how long that lasts.
Oh, sorry. Sure, and I get that that's the moving target of the PR, but we at the Pfizer papers know that Pfizer only got to that claim of preventing severe disease and hospitalization and death by fake math, where they removed 200 vaccinated people from a column. So it's all a house of
that's
cards.
one part of it. That's one part of the fake math. James Fryman looked at even the endpoints and how they were measuring the endpoint. There was a whole bunch of funny business in there. If anyone's interested in that, look at my last interview with James Fryman and Jessica Rose. I have to take a quick break, Naomi. I want to still wrap up this topic a little bit further, and then I want to talk about Dr. Fauci's shenanigans. We'll be right back. Again, I want everyone to go to follow Naomi on Wolf, Naomi R. Wolf. You see it down there on the screen, and also dailyclout.io, and also and also get the book, The Courage and Faith to, I forgot the title. I can't quite see it. To
Dark
Resistance
Age,
in
Courage, Faith, and Resistance, New Dark Age.
So weird think about the fact that, could you imagine that's the book you write 20 years? How long was the, after some of your earlier books, can you imagine that's the title of the book? I mean, when you were writing back 20 and 30 years ago, could you imagine you'd write a book with that title now?
I hope so, because all of the writers I really admire kept thinking and growing and didn't stay in one place over their careers.
All right. Fair enough. Good positive spin on that. All right. We'll be right back with Naomi Wolf after this. Let's talk about aging, because everyone wants to know how to slow it down. For almost a decade, I've been taking a healthy aging supplement called True Niagen. This supplement boosts NAD. That's something that cells can't live without. It's done with a patented form of nicotinamide riboside called NR, or Niagen. It's more efficient and more scientifically reviewed than NMN or other NAD boosters. True Niagen is truly the best way to boost NAD levels, and it's made by Chromadex. They're the gold standard in the NAD space. Dr. Charles Brenner, the scientist who discovered the NAD boosting potential of NR, explains.
And the center of the metabolism that allows the conversion of food into energy is NAD coenzymes. And NAD gets disturbed in the aging process. And as we're exposed to conditions of metabolic stress, Niagen, which is the form of NR that was developed by Chromadex, is the best and the only fully legal form of NR. And this is really the gold standard for NAD boosting vitamins.
I love this product. I urge you to try it. Go to drdrew.com/TrueNiagen for 20% off your order. That is drdrew.com/TrueNiagen, TruNiagen, and enter Dr. Drew at checkout, DRDREW, enter it at checkout for 20% off. We all know the value of a good night's sleep. We feel better, look better, have more energy to spare, but you could be missing out on all of those benefits if you're sleeping on sheets that are too hot or too cold or just plain uncomfortable. I have the solution. Cozy Earth bedding. Cozy Earth is the softest and most comfortable sheets, blankets, loungewear, and more. They use premium viscose from highly sustainable bamboo, and we sleep in them regularly. I wear their t-shirts. Susan wears their pajamas. Cozy Earth bedding comes with a 100-night sleep trial, which means you have up to 100 nights to sleep on them, wash them, try them out. If you're not in love, just return them within 100 days for a full refund. Susan and I love them. In fact, we have Cozy Earth sheets on our bed right now, and they made a huge difference in our sleep. If you've never tried Cozy Earth, we have some awesome news. You can save up to 35% off Cozy Earth right now. But hurry, this offer will not last. Go to CozyEarth.com, enter my promo code DREW at checkout for up to 35% off on your first order. That is CozyEarth.com, promo code DREW, COZYEARTH, CozyEarth.com, code DREW. You asked for it, and the Wellness Company has delivered. The medical emergency kit, replete with ivermectin, prescription antibiotics, and more, continues to fly off the shelves. We keep one here at home. And there are 3 new kits you need to know about, and more are coming. The Contagion Emergency Kit was inspired by the high demand for the medical kits. In that Contagion kit, you'll find ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, budesonide, and a nebulizer. And a must for your next trip is the Travel Emergency Kit, something I made sure exactly what I give my patients is in this kit and some more. The kit includes remedies for jet lag, variety of infections, even GI ailments. Imagine your flight getting grounded anywhere, say even in the U.S., and you start getting sick. You do not want to be at the mercy of the U.S. healthcare system or any healthcare system. At home, we keep the ultimate first aid kit on hand. It has over 20 essential supplies and medications for situations when time is of the essence. Order one for your car and your go bag. Because these kits contain prescriptions, your purchase includes a telemedicine consultation as well as an instruction manual. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. That is drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off all your orders. I'm very excited about these kits. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. It's all backed up by telehealth, so if you have any concerns, the backup is there. And again, my thing is about getting things into the hands of patients. I think if patients want to have control of their healthcare, this is the way to do it, and to do it inexpensively. So again, and safely. Naomi Wolf, again, you can follow her name, Naomi R. Wolf, on X, as well as Daily Clout on dailyclout.io, and her Substack as well. And Naomi, I'm looking at sort of weird consternation in some of the comments and stuff. So explain again how you collected your data and what the study entailed. One more time, exactly, how you opened this up, how it's objected, how it would, I'm just trying to anticipate criticism. In other words, could you have missed data? Could the numerator have been wrong? What could people criticize in the study? I'm trying to think, but describe please how you did it one more time.
Sure. So it's not our study. It's a Canadian COVID Care Alliance's study. And what we did, our role was that they partnered with us to bring the results to a larger audience. So our wonderful COO and project director of the War Room Daily Clout group of volunteers, which is a different group of volunteers, she took their findings and put it into a summary report format, which you can read on dailyclout.io. So what I've shared with you are the bullet points that she's lifted out from their study. And so again, what the methodology is that they submitted 2 Freedom of Information Act requests to the Canadian government, and they got data sets based on medical insurance billing. And of course, Canada has a socialized medical system. So every visit is coded, every diagnosis is coded in a central database. So those are the data sets that this group, Canadian COVID Care Alliance, analyzed. And their findings were what I shared with you, that there were dramatic escalations in certain codes that correlate to certain diagnoses having to do with reproductive disorders post 2021. And the damage was in both men and women.
And it included terminated pregnancies and whatnot, which was sort of hard to listen. It's hard to hear about. Is there anything more you want people to know about this study before we transition to the Dr. Fauci story?
No, except that, as always, it's very important to look for yourselves. So I recommend that people read Amy Kelly's summary report and click through to the underlying presentation of the data sets that Canadian COVID Care Alliance provides right there in the report.
Yeah, there's interesting data flying around. I saw some Australian data that suggested significant improved survival from, I think it was the first booster or something. And I thought, well, yeah, it was 50 and over. That's what the data was. And I thought, well, yeah, most of that is the 75 plus, where it really was worth the risk. Where in that population, they would really suffer from COVID, and their life expectancy is 10 to 15 years, and that's not a time frame in which something's likely to go wrong. And we're seeing less adverse events from the vaccine in that older age group. So I thought, isn't this interesting? I mean, the data is being sort of twisted and pulled and all over the place. So we have to all kind of look very carefully at what's going on. Plus, now everyone's had COVID, and it has a certain impact that we have, of course, also not measured. Because we're not allowed to ask any questions. It's just so bizarre. Okay, so Dr. Fauci had some emails, at least his assistant. Oh, you want to finish up the COVID story real quick?
Just before we pivot, I just want people to process that since these escalations began in 2021 and continued into 2022, and we don't yet have the data sets for 2023, what it meant is that the Canadian government knew that they were hurting people, even as they were promoting and pushing this injection and mandates. They knew it. They had the same data.
Well, that's the part that the British Parliament is slowly starting to look into. What did they know? What did they ignore? What did they not know? I mean, if you don't ask the question, you're not going to know it. Just because they had the available data, it doesn't mean they got the available data. There was active obfuscation of everything, and they might have been as actively sort of blinded to all this as everybody else was, with the whole mantras that were constantly being repeated.
It's very sweet that you always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but literally the point of having insurance billing codes is to quantify how people are getting sick. And first step is the medical insurance companies are going to be quantifying that data. So they're going to know even before they send the report over to the Trudeau government. And then the Trudeau government is going to know. And in any given hospital, they're going to know because they have the same data with their own population of their own patients. So literally no one up and down that chain of command whose hands touched any one of these data sets at any largish scale, from hospitals on up to medical insurers to the Trudeau government, is innocent. They all saw this hellscape of bodies, and they were silent and kept pushing this on their patients. So God bless you, but respectfully, I think you're wrong about giving people the benefit.
Well, I'll tell you what, that would be because I know how the medical system works, and I know how pathetic it can be. What you need to find next, let me humbly recommend, find the person who tried to push the data upstairs and was told, shut up. That's the person you need. And who told that person to shut up, and what did they know? That's where you're going to find the smoking gun, is right at that spot. You know what I mean?
That's important. Respectfully, that is important. But these are the data sets that whoever is telling the people of Canada that the injection is safe and effective and they need to take it have to look at before they make that statement with any kind of sense of integrity at all. So it shouldn't require some lowly functionary saying, hey, look, here's the data of all those people you injected, and some of them are getting sick, because literally these people at the top were saying it's safe and effective based on what? They had these millions of records. The millions of records show that it wasn't safe or effective.
I know. I could not agree with you more that it shouldn't be like that, but I'm really concerned it was like that, because there was so much crazy behavior during COVID that I mean, I don't want to let people off the hook if they were actively aware of the risk to people and still pushing. That's beyond disgusting. I mean, that's almost like you can't. Somebody though knew. Somebody did know. I agree with you on that for sure. And somebody said shut up if it didn't get all the way up to the top. But that's what John Campbell's searching for at the UK. That's what nobody's asking in this country. Nobody's sort of figuring that out. What seemed to be catching people's attention here is the biolab versus natural evolution explanation for the source of the virus. And now we have an email. I want you to help me with this from a close aide to Fauci, where an EcoHealth Alliance email on the origins of COVID was hidden, essentially. And this was from communication with EcoHealth Alliance and Francis Collins. By the way, before we get into this, did you see Francis Collins lately talking about the decision-making of public health? He said two things that almost made me fall out of my chair. He said, first of all, public health officials aren't equipped to make the decisions they were making, which is something I'd been saying from the beginning of the pandemic. Like, these people shouldn't have been making the decisions they were making. Then he said, there's in an interview it's available online. Then he said that these people, the world of public health, put infinite priority in attacking this thing and zero concern for the risks of the actions they were taking. Literally an infinity difference between risk and reward. Infinity. That cannot do anything but harm human beings. That is how even just walking in an office, zero risk reward consideration is how humans are harmed by the medical system. So he was essentially saying, damn, they shouldn't have been so silly with the risk reward analysis, and probably these guys shouldn't have been the people directing things in the first place. And to me, what gets behind that is then who should be is the person's doctors and communities, and very close to the patients should be making the decisions, not some idiot from on high at LA County or some idiot in California State or even some other idiot in the federal government for whom they were never in a position to make the kinds of recommendations they were making. Your thoughts?
Well, I certainly agree with you. I've been reading a book called Rockefeller Medical Men, which is about the establishment of our current medical system. And it was all kind of systematized in the 1920s via grants to medical schools by John D. Rockefeller. And where I'm going with that is that before that time, it was doctors on their own, making their own decisions about patients' care. And there wasn't a kind of systematized standard of care, let alone a national layering of public health officials who were not doctors in a solitary one-to-one relationship with their patients. So what is public health? I mean, I quite agree. Maybe if someday there's, a raging bubonic plague, we need public health authorities to weigh in. But the practice of healthcare for centuries has been, you make your decisions about your care with the person treating you. And, these layers of functionaries were invented basically in the 1920s in the forms that they take now. And the reason they were invented was to consolidate power and to harvest profits. And that was true from the very inception of what John D. Rockefeller was doing. So the other thing I would say, though, is that, again, Francis Collins, well, now you tell us, Dr. Collins. I mean, Francis Collins is on email chains that I've seen, his own name, not an underling, not subordinates, when a group of Israeli doctors and pediatricians were trying desperately to warn Dr. Collins, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Walensky, and 15 staffers from the White House, including a template that went up to POTUS, President of the United States, that the injections were going to cause myocarditis in minor young men and in young adult men. And he was on the email chain in which they scurried to cover this up, and in which the comms people created a 17-page script, totally redacted, to lie to the American people from April of 2021 on, telling parents that it was safe and effective and that myocarditis was rare and mild and resolved, which is a whole set of nefarious lies. So if he was upset about that situation, he should have come forward in April of 2021. He's on the email chains. They went to him. Yeah. He knew what the harms were and covered them up.
Let's consider for a second. Convenient. Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I want to consider for a second your construct of the plague, for instance, and I want to think about HIV as another construct, because here's the deal with the plague. The public health issue would be control the rat population, do that, and then let doctors treat the plague. Control the rat population, which they are not doing now in Los Angeles. There will be a giant tick-borne outbreak in this region. There will be. We have multiple tick-borne illnesses in this area. They're inevitable. Now, they seem to have knocked the rat population down a bit, but not enough to prevent a significant outbreak of murine typhus and or full-on plague is a possibility. Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. We've had it. We had it. We had it in Arizona. It's sort of heading our way because we don't do the actual public health they should be doing. Then let's look at HIV and AIDS. So HIV and AIDS, it was interesting because the public health sort of system took up the mantle of research, which was very helpful in my opinion. I know Dr. RFK Jr. feels differently, and there's people that feel differently. I was there. It was very helpful. We couldn't tell men anything except that they were going to die in 6 months. And soon we had something, and then we had something more very quickly. We couldn't kind of keep them alive long enough till we had something more. And public health helped with that. In the meantime, it was the medical schools, the residents, and the physicians that picked up the care of the HIV and AIDS patient. We had no real involvement from public health. They stayed out of our hair. And guess what? We did, it was an extraordinary job. It was never in history had an illness emerge, became characterized, epidemiology worked out, treatments for an illness with a 100% fatality rate. That was a great success. And it did not involve public health in the care of the patients. So isn't that interesting where things have worked out? I wasn't aware. I was in the middle of that fight, and I wasn't aware of public health at all, except insofar as they're helping us, so giving us information, and like they always did. The CDC just gave us information and help with research, and that was it. Right. And they weren't telling us what to do. That's insane. And certainly not the FDA was not involved with anything in any part of what we were doing. It's just such an insane situation we are in now. So I'm sorry. So I promised we would talk about this Fauci letter and this individual, this assistant that, what do you know about this? There it is. Fauci advisor for private emails on COVID origins.
I will, but may I just say the distinction you just drew between the theory of public health, which rightly is get rid of the rats, build playgrounds, make sure that there's not garbage festering the streets, infecting people. The great public health victory of the 19th century, the subject of my thesis, was the sewage system, which was the solution to cholera and typhus. That's the role of public health, right? Keep the infrastructure clean, not get in between the doctor and the patient. So I think that's a very useful distinction that you drew. And I'll also note as someone who was alive and a young adult during the AIDS crisis, that AIDS crisis in the 80s, that there were efforts by Dr. Fauci and others to get in between, to dictate quarantining and social behavior and treatment around HIV people. And it was roundly rejected. HIV positive people was roundly rejected as being inappropriate with civil liberties and privacy, how far we've come. So I think that's very salutary. All right. So the Dr. Fauci story is pretty shocking. I mean, they all are, right? But basically, he has this very senior aide named Dr. David Morenz. And Dr. David Morenz is best buddies with, guess who? EcoHealth Alliance President, Dr. Peter Daszak. And they were exchanging emails in 2020, April of 2020. So already we were locked down, quote unquote. And Morenz alleged that Fauci was, quote, fully aware and, quote, involved in some sort of damage control, end quote, possibly to protect EcoHealth from losing its grant. And EcoHealth Alliance, of course, was the source of the gain of function research, basically, along with Dr. Ralph Barrick at University of North Carolina. So Fauci, in spite of his denials to Congress, had been funding Dajak for years through EcoHealth. And the emails say, if it looks like they're implicated in the pandemic, this wouldn't be good for Fauci or EcoHealth. So as far back as April of 2020, a very senior aide to Dr. Fauci was telling this head of a nonprofit through which Dr. Fauci was funneling our tax dollars to study coronaviruses, right? And they were doing the research at the Wuhan lab that was illegal in the US. Well, April of 2020, they already suspected that they could have caused the pandemic through this illegal funding of gain of function research that they lied about to Congress, which is a felony.
So there we are. There is a smoking gun that seems to be not interesting to people. Why isn't this headline news? Why isn't it elsewhere than the New York Post?
You're asking me?
All
I've
right.
given up on.
You're a journalist. Help me. Help me. I've lost all faith in journalism completely.
They took the money. They took the money to mock those who raised questions about whether there might have been a lab leak. They took millions in CARES Act funding to overcome vaccine hesitancy. They took millions from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to promote one narrative. And look what's happening to legacy media. The Daily Beast is losing $6 million a year, and they're about to fire a bunch of people. The Washington Post just fired hundreds of people. Faith in legacy media is collapsing because they don't tell stories like this. And your and my, scruffy, scrappy startup platforms are booming because we do tell people the truth. We do engage in investigative journalism. So legacy media, but it's very sad.
Well, well, it's sort of, I think it's thrilling to see people pick up the mantle and do their own work. I like that. But here's a question I have. I have two questions. First, let me ask the first one. Are we simply surrounded by biolabs that are engaged in all kinds of subterfuge and warfare or arms racing of some type that the American public doesn't know about? Let's just start with that. Do you worry that that's where we are? Okay.
Well, I worry about
simple enough.
So many things. This is not top of my list, but the answer is categorically yes. In fact, Dr. Ralph Barrick was running, according to his own CV, which I posted on Twitter shortly before I was deplatformed. According to his own bio, he was running 11 gain function research locations, including looking at coronaviruses in bats in Maryland. And you remember there was a story a few months ago that Dr. Fauci in 2017 shipped some samples to an NIH-owned of infected bats, right, to an NIH-owned lab in Montana, and people reported getting sick with a mysterious illness in 2018. I actually got many emails about this from people around that area. So for all we know, the lab leak may have been, on our own homeland. It could have come from Montana because Dr. Fauci could not stop himself engaging in gain of function research with bat coronaviruses, which was illegal per Obama's edict in 2017, but it was happening in Montana. So, I mean, so the answer is yes. And Ukraine, right? Why is Ukraine such so many reasons it's so contested, but one of them is, as Putin has warned, there are U.S.-funded bioweapons labs. I mean, this was acknowledged in Congress, in testimony to Congress, by an American who oversaw the program, U.S.-funded bioweapons labs in Ukraine. And all of them,
so I asked
why do we think that's illegal?
So I asked Mike Benz this next question that I'm going to ask you. And, Mike talks, I'm sure your husband's aware of his construct with the blob, the intelligence blob. And I asked him, is this the blob? Is it the blob at work? And could it be that, again, it's me putting the most positive spin possible, so I know you'll you'll understand sort of my psychology, trying to understand these things. Is there a fight underway that we, I don't want to say shouldn't know about, but if we knew about, we would understand better why all this was going on, and we'd feel like they were doing the right thing in some weird way. Like that we'd be able to forget the fact, if we just disagreed with gain. Yeah, if we just all disagreed, gain of function should never happen, which I'm sort of in that zone. But is there a world where what they're doing is designed to help protect us and we just shouldn't know about it? Or I don't like this, you can't handle the truth shit. I just hate that. But anyway, let's see, you know what I'm asking. Is this the blob at work for our own good?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's the blob, because if it is the blob, it's classified.
Ooh.
But
Caleb, what's that?
I don't know.
do
Caleb jumped in and had a reaction.
That sounded
when
very
something
mysterious.
classified, he all of a sudden wants to see what? He leans in. She means she doesn't know for sure, not that she has classified information.
Okay.
No, I don't know, because it would be classified. If it was a national security program, it would be classified. I'm not the spy in the family, so I literally have no idea. But I do believe, to your question, that there is sometimes a role for classified programs to protect us, and that it's important that we not know about them, right? There's all kinds of stuff going on that's probably protecting us that we don't know about. And unlike a lot of people, I don't believe in 100% transparency all the time, because a lot of people in the intelligence world really, and in the world of defense, really are trying to protect us, and it's secret, right? That said, that I think what's going on with a lot of these gain of function programs in the Wuhan lab and EcoHealth Alliance and Bill Gates are such a great example of it, is that it's so corrupt, and you can't make the case that it's for our protection, because what happens is this disgusting knot of global vested interests that are not protecting the United States citizens at all. So you've got the Pasteur Institute, and you've got, Bill Gates, who's invested in the vaccines, and you've got China, our adversary, who don't like us at all, but it's so profitable. And then you've got the DNA database that they're building, which has lots of private funding, and you've got BlackRock invested in China, and no doubt invested in whatever products are going to come out of this research.
It's another blob.
So all these nasty, that's the blob, but it's a different blob, right? It includes probably national intelligence. It's a giant mess of basically globalists and capitalism, and it's international. So no, I don't think you can say it's there to protect us, so it's okay. And the other thing is, like, even classified programs have congressional oversight. And what Dr. Fauci was doing, he didn't tell Congress the truth about it. He didn't tell the Oversight Committee of Classified Programs the truth about it if it was classified. He literally lied to Rand Paul and to the American people. So that's also a no. This is not an example of someone following the rules and keeping us in the dark for our own good.
Could I ask a question related to that?
Really quickly, though, let me make one comment, which is that I would urge people to be very careful in your condemnation of the RNA platforms, in that for cancer patients, this has been something we've been looking at for a long time. Remember, cancer patients are likely, we're going to be using vaccine technologies in patients that are likely to die, for whom we don't have other treatments. So side effects become less significant, less important. We're trying to, again, you tolerate a lot more risk when the potential reward is higher, which is life-saving. Now, we're going to go through a learning curve where that's not really, the risk and the reward are not going to be that far apart. But please, I worry that we're going to throw the whole platform out, and we could lose something as a result. And don't get me wrong. What's that?
Why save this platform if it depends on lipid nanoparticles as the medium that's carrying the mRNA to the location? This is toxic.
Because it's somebody that you're trying to extend their life by months to years, not decades. And if you have these side effects,
any evidence?
There has been I've been involved with some, like, with melanomas and things. There's been things over the years that are vaccine responsive and whatnot. And in desperate situations where you don't have other intervention, look, we do lots of things that are very harmful to patients in the name of trying to save their life. Very harmful. So again, it's that risk reward we're always trying to figure out. My fear is the enthusiasm for it is splattering all over the place because people are unwilling to look at some of the risks that you're bringing up. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah. So, as a taxpayer, I always hate the idea of you can't handle the truth coming from my government, but at the same time, whenever people start acting strange and these officials don't make sense, then I try and look for is there a secret reason why they might be acting the way that they are? And one of the things that explained to me why they always seem to prop up big pharma that I had read is that our infrastructure in the United States, our defenses against a bioweapon or biological warfare relies on having the infrastructure of big pharma there to constantly be ready with their factories and their productions and their distribution network, so that if we are attacked with biological weapons, we just basically nationalize those factories or get Pfizer to pump out the antidotes and the vaccines. And that's why the government keeps on always deferring to big pharma, always pumping money into it, even when they have failed products, even when people get hurt. Do you see any aspect there of that, there being any honor in that they can't tell us this, even though we're paying the taxes, they can't tell us this because it's a national security concern? Or do you think that there's no foundation to that concept at all?
I mean, you've raised a lot of interesting questions all at once. I mean, I guess I would say that lots of industries get requisitioned in wartime or when there's a public emergency. And you shouldn't have to kowtow to those industries. Right. I mean, like rubber manufacture became completely oriented toward World War II defense production, and that didn't mean that our government was on their hands and knees to the tire manufacturers in peacetime, right? That's not how war works. So if that's a rationalization for kowtowing to pharma, I don't think it's a very persuasive one.
Right. I just wonder, I try to put myself in the room where if I'm a politician and I understand politics and business or law, I don't understand anything about medicine. So then I have a medical advisor that comes in and says, hey, listen, we have two choices. We can go down the road of being unprepared and we can just let capitalism take care of this, or we can prop these big companies up because they already have the factories and have some sort of preparation, because China can just create they can just nationalize it and they can do all of this. But over here, we need to have these extra rules and these extra layers to go through to keep it consistent with democracy.
You're making a case for extreme bureaucratic centralization, which is what's happening. Which is what's happening. Right. That's what's happening. But Naomi, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just going to say that's a really interesting point, and possibly that argument could be made. I mean, I know that we prop up the whole defense industry in peacetime, so they'll make planes and bombs in wartime. But nonetheless, there's a chain of command, right? And there's an established flow of oversight, even for classified national security programs, in which there would be a congressional committee tasked with those secrets, basically, and making sure that it's being done lawfully, among other things. And I can't stress enough, classified or not, gain of function was outlawed by our president in 2017. So no one should have been writing emails circling the wagons for gain of function research, right? It was outlawed. Classified, not classified, it was outlawed. He's the commander in chief. You can't, from what I understand, I mean, I'm sure there are black budgets and,
that's what I was thinking
operators.
Of. It's torture was illegal, but then we would send all the prisoners off to these offshore islands, and then our country would do that. They would keep doing it.
Have somebody else do it.
Right, have someone else do it, or just do it in a place where the laws don't apply as much and get in trouble for that much later. That's why the part that confuses me a lot is that Trump is still sticking to his guns about the vaccine, even though that's really not a winning message for his followers. Like, that's not going to win him votes amongst his people. They kind of have to overlook that. And so it makes me, start to wonder, is there something, I feel like Drew's brought this up a few times too, where he's like, is there something that we are missing only because they're not telling it to us, because they think it could be wrong. Like, they may think they're justified in doing that, and that may be their own ego and their own issues. But to me, it's like, it's either that they're not telling us something, or we're really screwed a lot more because the people in charge don't know what they're doing.
Right. Well, okay, now that's a separate issue, which is taking advice from medical professors. And there, yeah. I definitely want to kind of defend President Trump, or any president, having seen how these offices work. There's literally no way a president can know everything. And as you said rightly, Caleb, he may know business, he may even know geopolitics, but he's not going to know medicine and science. No one can. So every president, Clinton, Obama, everyone needs to rely on what are called special assistants to the president. And you have to take their advice. So I don't blame him for taking the nefarious advice of Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx at that time. I think it's dumb for him to not acknowledge as a message that we've learned a lot since then. I think that would go a long way.
I agree.
But I don't think that what you're not being told is a national security issue. Drew, I think probably what you're not being told is that he took a lot of money from pharma, or is currently taking a lot of money from pharma, as everyone is. And so he's not at liberty to, say the things.
So yeah, money is... money in politics is like... It all goes to bureaucratic excess and money in politics. Those are the corruptions of the system. And when people hear the word corruption, they think illegal. I'm not talking about illegal. The system is not healthy. It's corrupted and it's
right.
And
it's
corrupt. Yeah. Well, listen. I feel like our conversations get more interesting every time we get together, and today was no exception. Totally. Is there anything we left off? Is there anything you'd like to send people to or remind people of?
Thank you. No, sadly, I do have to hop off, but before I go, I'd love to send people to Facing the Beast, the book, which tells this whole story of the last 3 years and this journey we went through together, as a nation. And the story of the Pfizer documents, what we found in them. And it's on Amazon. And also, please support us at Outspoken. That's my Substack. And on dailyclout.io, we're doing really important work, including an election integrity bill, which we're having adopted in multiple states. We need you to invite me through your representatives to your state house. I'll bring the bill and we'll get it passed so we can have clean elections in November. And this report that we've discussed is also on dailyclout.io by Amy Kelly. And thank you so much. I'm so sorry I have to hop off now, but I appreciate talking to you.
You've been generous with your time. Great to see you. We'll talk soon. And let's go ahead and put up, you bet, put up our schedule going forward. We have Tom Renz and Sasha Latipova in here tomorrow, which will be very interesting. Tom also sends to Mind Data, Mike Lindell, Kyle Lucy, Peter McCullough. Well, I'll be him in person. Donald Trump Jr. will ask him of some of these questions about why his dad doesn't, he might be able to answer, why he doesn't cop to some of these things that I wish he would. I think it would do a lot to heal the country, frankly. Okay, so tomorrow is more of the similar kinds of conversations because Tom and Sasha both are data miners and they find their way into interesting data and ask interesting questions. And we will continue this the pursuit of the truth as best we can. Don't anybody jump to conclusions. I'd say that you're at your liberty to analyze the data as you wish and to have your opinions, but it feels like it's an ongoing process. Susan, anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
Sorry I wasn't interacting. I was listening the whole time. I'm filling out placements for the rehearsal dinner this weekend.
Yes, and that's why we're going to be short. We're going to just go tomorrow, and then we'll be a short week. And when we come back...
50 people going with 5 kids.
Ugh.
I know, that's half the wedding.
Craziness. When we come back the following week, it is back to our usual schedule, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 3 o'clock. And then the week after that, I believe we are in Florida and we'll be in person from Rumble
Caleb,
Studios.
how many people were at your wedding?
Oh, that's a trick question. I don't remember. I was so focused on my wife. I have no memory of the rest of the event.
Aw.
Trick question.
250, I bet.
It's concerning. That's all I can say. All right. So we appreciate Naomi being here. Do support her. Get the book. Very interesting stuff. Look at it for yourself. Draw your own conclusions.
I love her.
Yeah, she's a good friend. And she's always interesting. And she's trying. She's trying her best.
She should get together with Ed Dowd.
Yeah, that would be an interesting combo.
I was going to say it, but no, she probably already did.
That would be interesting.
I know her.
All right. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific time for Tom Renz and Sasha Latapova. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.